sake of time, we'll start getting things going to learn about the sound barrier and what they found in their study. Representative Bowden here, and thank you for all the work that you've done with Councilman Sheila Franklin here, Town Manager Mark Beaver. We also representatives from the DOT. I hand it over to you.
Okay. Yep. Wanda Payne, I'm the division engineer. I have Mitchell Bishop, construction engineer here, and then also the person to blame everything, Mike Patton.
If you don't have my phone number, I'll give it to you. Everybody else has it.
Yeah, you need his phone number. Online, we have Chuck McGrady, our board member, and we also have Tracy Roberts and Trey Jordan, who are the sound wall experts. So just to, I know y'all know the history, but just kind of put it out there for everybody. You know, when we start a widening project, we do have to do noise and sound if we're adding capacity. Let me back up with that. If we're adding capacity, that's what triggers a noise study. And so with the I-26 widening project, obviously we were adding a lane for the majority of Henderson County and added 2 lanes for the rest of Henderson County and Wildwood County. And so that's what triggered the sound study back in the day. You know, we did do there's a lot of, and you'll see in a minute, there's a lot of terminology about feasible but not reasonable, or if it's feasible. Those are kinds of the outputs of this study, and then there has to be a vote of the local officials. So at the time, the sound wall that was, I think it's 5.4, is the noise wall, the noise wall for the community here in Fletcher, Wildwood. It was not feasible at that time, or reasonable, one of those two. And so that's the reason why the sound wall was not included in the project originally. Since then, you know, we had discussions. We've built a berm, so that actually worked to the advantage of the locals, because when we went back, having that berm that we did put in to mitigate some of the sound, lowered the height of the wall, so therefore we don't have to, it's not going to be as costly to build that wall, so that works in your favor to make it more feasible from a benefit cost ratio.
So you're not starting from a very lower. You're
Correct.
shortening the height of it,
Correct.
so it's not as high, so it is a lot cheaper to do it that way.
That's exactly
That makes
right.
sense.
So that's where we're kind of at today. We did do another study, so Trey and Tracy are going to go over that results. So I'll turn it over to them and let them kind of show y'all the results.
Yeah, good morning everyone. I'm Tracy Roberts. I'm with NCDOT's Traffic Noise and Air Quality Group, and my office's responsibility is to manage the traffic noise studies and the determinations of where noise walls are built for all of our projects statewide. And as Wanda pointed out, we did do a noise study for this entire corridor, including Wildwood Circle. That study was completed a few years ago. We did not have a noise wall recommended because it was not cost effective. So there's a bunch of criteria that have to be met to construct a noise wall. One of them is we sort of do a cost benefit analysis. So we look at the number of homes that would benefit from a wall compared to the amount of wall that would be needed to achieve certain objectives we're looking for, and if we don't satisfy that cost-benefit ratio, then the wall can't be built under federal regulation and under our own noise policy, the state's noise policy. So that's why the wall wasn't recommended in the original study. As Wanda pointed out, a berm has since been built, so we've now gone back and reevaluated noise abatement for this neighborhood. The wall can go on top of the berm, which essentially putting the wall on top of higher ground allows us to build less noise wall, and building less noise wall and improves that cost benefit ratio to the point where we can now recommend it for construction. And I'm going to share my screen. We have put together a figure, a small map to sort of illustrate what I am talking about. Bear with me a second.
And while you're doing
line in purple, you can see there's a label that says begin noise wall, and then at the other end that says end noise wall. The line in purple, that's the proposed location of the noise wall for Wildwood Circle neighborhood. And you may go by a different neighborhood name, I just call it Wildwood Circle for simplicity here. And the circles, the yellows and the reds and the blues, and there's a couple of greens in here, these are just representative points for each of the homes in the neighborhood. So the colors have different meanings. The blues are homes that are benefited by this noise wall. Now, benefit has a very specific definition in our world. Benefited means that when a noise wall is put in, it achieves at least a 5 decibel reduction. A 5 decibel reduction is considered substantial under the regulations we operate under. So the houses in blue, we will see a substantial noise reduction by the placement of this wall. It also means that those houses, the noise levels were high enough to be considered a noise impact. And impact also has a very specific definition. It just means that for residential land uses, noise levels will be at least 66 decibels or higher in the future. So that's what the blues mean. The greens, there's like 4 green dots here. These are houses that would also benefit from the wall, again, that 5 decibel reduction, but the noise levels there weren't high enough to be considered impacted. And then the yellow circles are homes that would neither be impacted by noise nor be benefited by this wall. And I want to just say a couple things about my use of the term impacted and my use of the term benefited. So impacted has a very specific regulatory definition that we must follow. That is 66 decibels or higher. That does not mean that you are not impacted by traffic noise. You may very well be. You're next to an interstate, you stand outside on your deck, you can hear the noise, you're bothered by it, your perception is you're impacted by it, but we have to follow the regulatory definition of impacted. And number 2, when I use the word benefited, that means that based on our modeling that we've done, that a noise wall will get 5 decibel reduction or more. But that doesn't mean that other homes in this neighborhood wouldn't also be benefited. You may find that even though I didn't show that you would be benefited in a technical sense, you may find that when this wall goes up, that you can notice a reduction. So I'm bound by, very specific definitions of the use of those terms. But don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you're not impacted by it if you're a yellow circle, or that you wouldn't be benefited by this wall. And there's some basic information here. The length, 1,250 feet. The height would range from as low as 12 feet and as high as 26 feet. These are preliminary numbers. I've got a note at the top of the map that states that because this analysis is still underway. But we feel like we've done enough of an analysis to be able to say with confidence that we'll be able to build this wall. But we do have some more work to do. And I'll say that once we complete our analysis, there is a voting process that we follow. So the homes, the property owners and the tenants who are benefited by this wall, again using my definition, get to vote on whether they want the noise wall or not. So if your house in the final analysis is blue or green, then we will be sending you a ballot and you can vote yes or no on this wall. And it must pass that balloting process. There's no reason that it won't, but it is a box that we have to check. So you will find probably middle or late August, I'll start mailing these ballots, and you'll get them in the mail. And it'll be a figure that's very similar to what you see here in the packet, and then be a letter that explains the balloting process. And then there'll be a postcard in there that's already got the be addressed and to stamp on it, all you have to do is check, yes, I want the wall, or no, I don't, and nail it back. And if it passes that balloting process, that's the final step for us in making the decision to build this wall. So we did, you may ask, why does the wall stop where it does? There are primarily two reasons. Here at the beginning, well, it said at the beginning on this wall, so where, I guess I'll rephrase it, why does it start where it does? But two things. One, there's an overhead power line that follows I-26 through here. We want to avoid impacting that power line, so we've stopped it short to prevent that from happening. And number two, we want to respect the church's wishes of not blocking the view or impacting the view of their property, so we stop it where we can. But it provides benefits, even starting here for, except this one red circle, almost every home is benefited in this neighborhood. So we did the best we could do with the constraints we got to operate within. And with that, I will answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, what's the timeline on when construction might begin on this? Is there any idea?
Tracy, can y'all hear the questions, or do I need to repeat them? Okay.
Yeah, he has a timeline for construction. I think Mike Patton's gonna check with the contractor on that, on a potential timeline.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you could hear the questions. So.
Yes, yeah, I heard.
We hope to have this end, Tracy's end of things done by, like you were saying, August or September.
We have to get a final design after the vote.
Yeah.
There's several steps.
We go to what's called shop drawings. There's multiple steps to go through. As everyone knows, materials are an issue today. I expect that to take a couple of months to get hold of the materials. I think right now, we're probably looking at November or December.
And we are actively doing those shop drawings and kind of preliminary stuff we're making the assumption that the vote's going to be a yes, just for what we're making that assumption. I think it's a good bet. So we're not waiting until after the vote to start work. We are working toward that and taking that risk.
Are these precast? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can't see it very well.
That's okay.
All right. Where does it end?
Right now, it's
The church does not want it?
that's what we've heard, is that the church does not want a sound wall in front of their blocking their.
It looks like it's midway to the,
So, yeah,
You
there's.
know where the fellowship hall is?
yes.
I live right behind it,
Okay.
It does cover the fellowship hall.
because they make a lot of noise.
Yeah, so the fellowship hall starts, ends, whichever way you want to look at it, at the fellowship, in that fellowship
They
hall
will go
area.
past the fellowship
So
hall.
then it goes toward the rest area and behind the rest area.
It starts about the center of the fellowship hall. We can show you on the screen here after this, and then goes around behind the rest area.
Are they having more say than we have?
No,
I mean, I'm there all the time.
They get one vote like everybody
yeah,
else.
they get one vote.
I'm
for
assuming,
something
I
else.
don't think.
Well, it'll depend, like Tracy was saying, on whether or not they're,
I mean, they have put stuff there that you would not believe on that area.
the church property, as Tracy said, we run into multiple problems as you get to the church.
Well, they're
property.
local now. They're not.
We don't own enough right of way there to build a wall. The power line is a problem, and there's also a water line that comes down through there that feeds the rest of it. As we get to the church,
But we can certainly, evaluate how far we can push it to benefit you, and we'll make
Because
sure.
they've got trucks, they've got
Yep.
dumpsters, they just, unbelievable what they have put.
Now, the good thing is once this is done, it'll be gone. You won't have all that there. Once you're
Are
done.
you talking about trucks and dumpsters that the church is?
The church has put
Oh.
that.
So even if we had them all up, their stuff would
We
be
have,
behind.
they have an RV
Yeah,
that they park there.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
they're,
that's not, unfortunately, the sound wall for I-26 will not,
Because it's behind.
because it's behind it, that's not gonna take
it's not
the
like that,
noise.
but
It's not gonna help that.
they're not getting more votes than the people that actually
Correct.
live there.
Well, actually, the way that's done, they're not getting a vote at all.
Correct.
They don't have a blue or a green dot, so
But what we're going to get, see where the zigzag at, the red, right of way line,
I see that.
that's the right of way line. We want to get a right of entry from
right,
there.
we'll have to get a right of entry from them.
We've got to get permission, the wall will be on our property, but to get the equipment in, we need this stopping in an area where they're okay with it, so that we can utilize their, we're going to have a right of entry on the tip of their property down in the woods to be able to construct it. So we're trying to work with the whole community, is what we're trying to do, to get as much wall as we can for y'all.
All right, so the red line goes so many houses from the circle.
Well, the red line is the right of way line. The purple is the wall.
Okay, purple goes fine.
One thing I can tell you is that the houses at R4 27, 28, 27, 26, and 25 for sure are getting lots more noise. Yeah. And there needs to be a berm or something put there, and if power lines need to be moved, then that needs to be investigated.
So with, and Tracy, if you want to delve into like how we look at stuff, and I learned a lot of this personally myself when the original study was done. But when they're looking at the noise receptors,
The church is blocking.
the church is blocking, by the study, the church actually blocks that. And so that's the reason why, and Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the reason why a lot of the houses back behind them, like the 427, are in yellow and not blue or green, is because the church acts as a barrier for that wall, or not wall,
It-
noise.
It did in the original study, but we had a big tree buffer there. So when they did the study, we didn't qualify. And then they moved all those trees out, and now it's, we may as well be where she is.
Yeah, the airport noise is coming to me, too.
Since they ripped all their trees down.
So Tracy, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so there's there's a lot of factors that go into why noise levels are what they are at a particular house. The yellow circles here, the homes with the yellow circles didn't quite reach the impact threshold that we need to justify extending that wall. With respect to the trees, we don't include trees in our analysis, we just leave them out. Trees, particularly in the winter time, don't do very much for reducing noise. They do help provide a visual buffer, and oftentimes if you can't see a noise source, it seems less noisy, but we don't include those trees, so the fact that they were removed doesn't change the outcome of the study that we did. And we do model, we do include all the buildings that are out there, so the church building, the sanctuary, the fellowship hall, we put those in our model. They do to varying degrees help block or intercept some of the noise. And of course the terrain does. If you've got a highway that's sitting down lower than the surrounding neighborhood, then that just natural earth is going to serve to suppress noise levels. Again, I just want to emphasize, because your house is in yellow, doesn't mean you're not, affected by noise. I'm sure you are, but unless they reach the 66 decibel threshold that we must have to extend the noise wall, we couldn't justify extending it.
Can you tell me when the study was done, and have there been more than one studies for the noise? And can you tell me if there has been one more recently that would take into account the increase in the traffic on 26?
So the original
Yes.
study, the original study was what, 2019?
We did this, yeah, and there were even preliminary studies done even before that. So there have been several studies that have been done on this project. I would say the one that probably mattered the most was the one in 2019. That's the decision document. That was based on final engineering plans. So very, very detailed. We did some studies prior to that were more preliminary. But the conditions that we model, the conditions that we analyze, result in the worst or the loudest noise conditions traffic. Of course, the noise source here is highway traffic. So the volume, we include the volume of traffic, vehicle mix, such as 18-wheelers and medium trucks and automobiles. We put them in at highway speeds, and we use the traffic conditions that give the loudest noise levels. And so that is to your benefit. You know, the fact we don't put trees in our model is to your benefit. The fact that we use traffic conditions that give the loudest noise hour is to your benefit. So there would be no need to go back and like revisit this study because we've already included traffic conditions that give us the loudest noise levels.
It has unbelievably, the traffic has, in the last 6 months, is
Right.
unbelievable.
But we reran the model, we reran this.
Recently.
Recently, yeah, this was, so that we could do this. So this was done, this is June, the end of April, 1st of May, this model was done again.
So I can see the interstate.
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many days a week it is backed up both ways.
Oh, yeah. I live on the interstate too.
Well, did it account for all the additional traffic and the expanded?
Well, it's worth mentioning that the analysis is based on the predicted 2040 traffic.
Oh, so 2040 traffic.
So we would have had even more traffic than we're experiencing today because it's based on 2024 or 2040. Gosh, 2040. Yeah, projections.
Right, yeah, so none of this was done on today's traffic or traffic a year ago or 2 years ago. All of it was done all the DOT's projects statewide have what we call a design year. So they're sizing the facility in terms of number of lanes and that sort of thing based on the future condition. And for this project, it was 2040. Using traffic volumes that give us the loudest noise levels.
Be yellow.
What about the expanded rest areas and the increased use of jet bikes that we hear 24 hours a day? And it just.
That would have been all in the forecast, yeah.
Now, I would like to ask you a question about noise level, what that means, because I look at noise as a steady state, continuous function. Then I see a peak of what that is in the traffic. Then I see these very high peaks that come from trucks accelerating and decelerating from the connection to the interstate, the intersection, and from the rest area. So when you're talking about a noise study, are you looking at steady state noise level or amplified levels due to short-term truck use?
Yes, it is, so it's going to be a combination of steady state. I would say that the majority of the noise is coming from steady state traffic. But as it relates to the rest area, as vehicles are leaving that rest area and merging on the I-26, we do include that acceleration effect, particularly of your 18-wheelers. So they're starting from 0 miles per hour and they're trying to accelerate up to the speed on I-26, 60 or 65 miles per hour. So that acceleration, the vehicle being under a load, trying to get from 0 to 60 or 65, is included in our analysis. Things like jake brakes. So there are things that happen when vehicles are on an interstate that cause big spikes in noise levels. Things like jake brakes, really loud motorcycles, cars that have performance exhaust systems, vehicles that leave the travel lane and hit the rumble strip. All of these things cause big spikes in noise levels, and they're very annoying if you are living nearby. But a noise wall can't fix those kinds of things, and those kinds of big peaks are not included in our analysis. Those are annoyances that bother everybody, and even folks who are behind the noise wall say it's still annoying, but it's not something that we're able to really do much about.
I don't understand why at Carolina Village, first one y'all put up. I've been to Carolina Village. I have friends at Carolina Village. You never heard anything in Carolina Village. And yet there it is.
And that goes back to the original study and doing that cost benefit analysis, and it did warrant it. And then they went through the same voting process and did.
So all those people living there had a vote?
Anyone that were.
No, I'm talking about Carolina Village.
Yes,
Because-
anybody that was blue or red, so that may have not been everybody at Carolina
I
Village,
mean,
because not
because
everybody is.
You don't hear anything in Carolina Village. I have friends that, have
We
moved.
And as far as like the
We didn't
schedule.
build one, yeah, we don't direct the contractor as far as, hey, you need to go build this one first. That's where they chose to work. And we have multiple other walls that have yet to be built. that we-
Well, the one
we
across the
still have to
street
build.
in, and it's my understanding that there could be a trailer park put there. It's not there yet, but they've got the wall going.
It wouldn't have been based on, it's not based on what's going to be built, we based.
We don't understand why they got it, and yet we've been fighting for, forever.
Right, and there again, if you go back to what he said about taking the trees away, if you take the trees away and looked at it like it was a desert landscape, then that house, even though it may be further away from the road, would be that
There's nothing
first
there.
receptor, whatever that first receptor was. So it may not, we've had the same question about, not we, but Division 13 in Asheville has had the same question about the interchange there that they've built, because you can't see the homes back there, but the homes are back there, like you said, like Tracy was saying, if you take the trees down, then there's a whole neighborhood back there.
Well,
That's how-
I try to avoid it at all costs. Mainly because the Fletcher, where you get off at the airport exit,
Yeah.
there is no place to get on. I mean, you better look really well, because you're gonna be run over. They need to expand that really badly.
Does the top of the wall level, or does it follow the terrain variation?
It follows the terrain variations, but there's also a height limitation that goes into the design. So it's not going to be totally like straight across, and then it may come down. So it does follow the terrain.
Each section is level, but then there's got step ups and step downs to match the terrain, and there's a maximum height.
So there's a maximum height of how.
What is the average height above the ground level?
For this particular wall that we're talking about,
Yeah.
It said
probably
12,
20 feet,
it said 12 to 26 foot range.
probably 20
Yeah,
feet.
based on the preliminary, the average height is 19 feet.
Yeah,
That one.
Did you say 19 feet?
Yes.
Yeah.
okay, so there.
Yeah,
See,
that
I
lower
think
corner,
that's-
where the wall does an angle, that's about the lowest spot in there off of Wildwood Circle. I mean, you can stand right there and you're almost eye level with the interstate. So that's gotta be the most significant height, I would think, right there in that corner.
I don't think we've got the final design.
Yeah, we don't have the panel design, the final design, so I'm not sure how it steps up, but.
Well, I lived there in the late 80s, and yes, the ag center's across. I never hear the ag center. There's 2 weeks when the fair is there. I never hear it. Now, there are certain groups that will meet, and I'll hear it. And this sounds prejudiced, but Hispanic music will come. But, they cut it off early. It is never. And everybody says, well, doesn't this bother you? No, it doesn't bother us. It drifts down. But the road is, trucks and stuff are horrible.
So when you say the wall's gonna be 19 feet, like around residence, like 416, does that mean the top of the wall will be 19 feet, including the earth berm, or will it be 19 feet on top of the wall itself, 19 feet on top of the existing berm?
On top of the
It's on top of the berm, but it's an average of 19 feet, so it may be that lower limit of 12 on top
Oh,
of the
I
berm.
see. So including the berm, it'll be a 19-foot barrier.
Well, on top of the berm, it could be 12 feet,
I see.
or it could be 19.
I got you.
We don't know.
The only area that's around the 12 feet height is towards the end of the noise wall as it wraps around the rest area. Most of the piece that's, closest to all the homes is much closer to 20 feet.
And I'll add, when we send out the ballots in, mid to late August, if you're interested in the height of the wall at a particular house, just let me know. My contact information is going to be in the ballot packet, my name, my phone number, my email, and we'll have that information by then.
mention, Brian, since you spurred my memory, it is possible, and Mitchell said something about this a minute ago, to construct this on top of the berm and get the height that we want. It may be necessary at some point to ask some of the residents for a right of entry onto your property, just not to build anything on your property, but to have the equipment there to build the wall. The wall will be built on NCDOT property, but in order to build it, we're gonna be relatively close to property lines. And so at some point, I may come to you guys and say, hey, just, if you'll sign this and allow us to have a piece of equipment on your property while we're constructing the wall.
What, if you could imagine specifically, what we're imagining is they have to basically straddle the wall with a track over a crane or something and put the, drill holes and build it as you come out. So that's generally within 3 or 4 feet of the property line. It could, it could be very close. So basically all it would be is having maybe like a track walking, on the.
But they wouldn't need to tear my fence down, or possibly.
If we do, we'll put it.
Oh, okay, that's all, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's-
What is the wall? Is the wall going to be a plastic thing or a concrete thing? Or
It's
what
the
kind of wall are we
It's the
talking?
panels that you're seeing going up now.
If you saw the other ones they're concrete with the rock on them,
Oh, yeah.
it'd be like all the others.
Those are significant.
Yeah.
Concrete posts with concrete panels.
Thank you, Congressman Buckman, and Chairman Grady, and everybody from DOT for being here. I just want to ask, better understand Mr. Roberts' comment about the initial analysis being perfectly appropriate and no need to revisit that. If that was the case, I don't understand why there's so much advocacy and work, and anybody can see from I-26 that there are houses right up against this massive expansion that are going to be dramatically impacting the berm is doing little to nothing to help. In addition, in a subsequent evaluation appears to have found that a sound wall is likely appropriate. It seems like a real opportunity, and it sounds like an opportunity that staff and DOT are not embracing to identify potentially a new input for your analysis, in that a berm, in addition to a sound wall, changes the cost for putting in a full sound wall that should be considered when we're doing these evaluations. Is that something you guys are taking into account in the future, so this doesn't happen again?
You're making a very good point. Historically, the department would not change anything, or would not build, a berm and a sound wall on top of that. And the only reason why the berm is here is because early on in discussions, when we first started construction, residents, and I don't remember exactly who it was, but residents, came to us and they said, you've taken our trees down, we need some kind of barrier. And so the department took the initiative, because we knew at that point we could not build a sound wall by the study that was done. And so we, said, well, how about a berm, and we'll plant some trees on top of it. And that's what we did, to help mitigate that. That mitigation was not enough, was not enough, I guess is the best way to say it. And so that's when, we started looking, well, hey, let's just reevaluate this. And we weren't expecting, but we should have, but we weren't expecting that the height of the berm and then putting the sound wall on top of it would, like you say, make it more of a benefit cost, and put it more on the benefit side than the cost side. So, but
Well,
yes,
the berm is not uniform. It's the highest in the church, and it's almost zero down where the angle occurs, so the berm is a great variance. And it's
And that's why
basically.
your wall is based on too.
and you're correct, but any help, when you're looking at it, it was a close call, so anything that we did obviously tipped the scales to help.
I think that the cost benefit ratio, from what I gathered, talking with Tracy earlier, on this one, the cost benefit ratio was so close, I think the berm lessened the cost enough to push it over. If there had been a wider gap in the cost benefit ratio that they go by, the berm would have, we wouldn't be able to.
But there are houses that are not, there is especially one house that can't be sold there because it's right on the interstate. walk out their door and there you are.
Yeah, the backyard is the rest area.
The rest area, yeah. And, you know, that has, but I don't think the county in its infinite wisdom, lowered the price. I mean, you know, the evaluation of the house. But it has knocked down the value of our homes. But we're not seeing it from the county. But yet we've got houses that won't sell.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
I know, but the fact that we need to walk outside.
Wildwood Lane, I wouldn't have bought a house in the circle at all. It wasn't even conceivable, but the noise was high back then.
Yeah.
So now you've expanded the noise level by at least 30%. And so the blue houses are,
Well, as long as y'all say
Her bag.
yes, we'll take care of that.
it's unimaginable that the church doesn't want the berm extended, not 14 feet above the berm, because the berm's high at that point, but at least 4, 5, 6 feet to match the rest of the wall that you're putting in. So I would ask you to recheck that. I mean, it seems like you should continue a short wall all the way up to Fanning Ridge Road.
That's right. I mean, and that's just what they've communicated to us. But like we said here,
Well, the reverend or the diocese or the members, and who communicated that?
Where did we get these done?
The biggest problem that we have is the church property is literally the right-of-way that we own. We don't own enough right-of-way there to, like, from the top of the cut now, coming up from the interstate, we put up some guardrail for the church, just so nobody can accidentally come from their parking lot down onto the interstate. But the fence that we put up is the right-of-way, and it literally, from the top of the cut, is about this wide. And so we just simply don't own the property there to do anything. It's not our property. And we're way too far in the process of finishing this to ever want to start acquiring property. Like, it's just, right? I mean,
Well, if I was a
we
church
just
donor,
don't.
I would donate that little bit of land to you to
Oh,
do work. And that work would be easy because you have a flat access right at the church. You wouldn't even have to come up the hill to build. The building process would be very easy because all the work's.
We have to work within the constraints that we have, and being on other people's property is something we really, really, really try not to do.
Property.
We are going to have discussions with the church to see the tentative where it says begin noise wall. There may be.
And see, we're in real trouble here because my backyard, my fence, if I go over my fence, I'm in Buncombe. I'm in Henderson. You call, you can get no help from either Buncombe or Henderson. It's always, well, you're in Henderson, they're in Buncombe. The noise is Buncombe, you're in Henderson. You know, they just pretty much do what they want to do. And it was carved out.
Well, the good thing is we are working in both counties, I mean, as far as the railway.
We've had it
So we
all.
can, you know,
Now tell me this,
we're not bound by the county line.
thank goodness. I can't figure out which house is mine because I don't know the lot number.
You are 421, I think, the red one.
The red,
I'm pretty sure. You live right behind the fellowship hall? Yeah.
so will it be, so it will be partly behind my
Well,
house.
420, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, depending on, I mean, this is just a conceptual line on the map, so it will be potentially in that area.
I do know to maybe make you feel better, when we looked, Mitch and I both went out there and physically stomped around, and you know, as far as to build that wall, as far as we possibly can towards the church property, I'm pretty sure we were looking at your house and making sure that we brought it far enough in front of the fellowship hall to cover that, if that house is yours, to cover
It is
that,
mine,
to cover that house.
because, yeah, I've lived there since the 80s. Of course, my biggest problem is their.
So what is the dB level peak max steady state that you assess or predict versus what dB decibel reduction noise will there be after the wall is in? Is it gonna drop 5 dB, 10 dB, just rough?
Yeah, we require at least a 5 decibel reduction, but oftentimes we can get more than that. Trey, what's kind of the range of noise level reduction we're looking at?
So for, I'd say for receptors 413 through 419, it's in the 11 to 14 decibels of noise level reduction range. For all people on the second row, 430 through 434, it's more like a 7, 8 decibel.
And then what's the steady state level that you predict or are using? Is it 60
Again, it
dB?
varies, 413 to 419, in the 71 to 76 decibel range, so obviously well above that 66 threshold. Most of the folks outside of that range are right around 66 to 68.
How much longer will it be working at night? Now, I called and complained a couple times. It has gotten much, much better.
We pretty much stopped working at night.
Oh my God, that was hard.
Yeah, they did, there was one particular evening, or maybe two there.
There was like 3 or 4.
Where they were doing, we should have never done that, and I'll give you my number and you can call and complain to me, that's my fault.
I mean, that was horrible.
Oh, I don't doubt it, we put a stop to it as soon as I knew that's what they were doing.
I called everybody in Raleigh I could find the number for.
Thanks, you have a question.
Thank you. So when you're going through the trees at the end noise wall behind the rest area, how much of that will you be removing? Is there guidelines that you can't have trees close to the wall, a certain amount? Does that make sense?
I think the biggest thing you're gonna have to have, you're gonna have to have about a 10, 12-foot wide swath at least to get the equipment in. Like I said, they'll drive a track hoe type piece of equipment in and drill the holes to put these piles in, or the posts for the lack of it. And then they'll use a crane or something to set the panels and work their way back out. I don't think the intent is to clear all of it. We will have to clear a path.
One of our environmental commitments that we're held to is to cut as few trees as humanly possible, and that's pretty much what we've done. And same for this, we will only remove trees necessary for the construction of the wall. So anywhere throughout this entire project, we have cut as few trees as we possibly can to
So
build.
probably a path to get to it, and then just enough of all up. They're not, is the way I'm thinking.
Would you get something like the width of the travel lane like this width around that?
Yeah, it's gonna take 15 to 16 feet, probably. But most of that, so this is an older photo. This is before construction ever started. So a lot of that, the trees that you're seeing there below, let's say below the purple line, are all gone anyway.
Yeah, that green line is actually the footprint of the rest area, the new rest
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
And I guess that was part of my question, that I'm more concerned with the trees being there is another level of noise reduction.
And just so everybody knows, this will require more trees to come down to build the wall. I mean, we'll cut as few as we possibly can, but more trees will get cut to build this.
I'm sorry, I should have asked you, did you have any comments or questions?
No, I've been commenting.
Okay.
It has been much better lately. Y'all are doing a better job at night.
Well,
It's not keeping
and
us
I
up.
apologize for that before. It shouldn't have happened, and we've pretty much stopped night work in that area, and we don't plan on picking it up.
And it was COVID, when you had your kids home and trying to study, whatever they call it that. And, it was just horrible.
Chaos at my house is what it was.
That's-
I agree, I don't say it is.
I only had one, and I would get to sleep and he'd come down and then I can't sleep. And then of course you hear it.
Yeah,
And it was a rhythm.
it was a rhythm.
I guess, we've been kind of frustrated driving up and down I-26 and seeing big walls put in, like down by Joe Hudson's Collision Center and up near the Toyota dealership near the Asheville outlets where they're
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying, the one near the actual outlets, that's actually a separate project, so that would have been, done under a totally
It's still
different.
state.
Correct, and that's what I was saying back, originally is, you take the trees down, and there's actually a whole neighborhood back there that you don't see because of the trees.
but it's far enough away, it shouldn't have, I mean, it's
Once you
way,
take the trees down and you get that noise, and that's what Tracy was saying, you do the analysis without trees, so it's like a desert, plateau.
And then down at Joe Mason Collision Center where they had that big wall, I mean, those guys are inside and drilling and banging all day long. And there's a trailer, 200 yards back in there. It looks like it's haphazard. And I don't know how the modeling is done. I've been trying to listen to it. It seems like there need to be some.
So that particular location, you have to remember, so there's a trailer park there behind Subway. And each of those individual residences, Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, each of those individual residences, even though it's a trailer, they get a vote and they count. And
Yeah.
and so if you take that trailer park and you start dotting each of the trailers in that trailer park, there are a lot of residents in that very small area.
So my neighborhood, for example, voted that I do not want a wall, I want my view, I like it. So our whole neighborhood voted that, so we don't have a wall, I hope you're not putting it. Not, I'm gonna fight you to take it down. But as far as I know, we're not getting one.
We don't put a wall.
All the lecture rates are coming this way. So I get it, it's also what the people want.
And now the wall, to your point, that wall there at Butler that extends from Butler Bridge to the collision center, that's a whole lot like what we're talking about that will be built here.
there's nothing there right now. They say there's gonna be something
So they may change, it changes, they can change.
Theoretically, speculatively, if the church were to say, yeah, we don't mind the wall and we'll give you 4 feet of land that you need, would you extend the wall to Fanning Bridge Road, Running Road?
We would have to see if it was, I guess that's a question back to Tracy and Travis, if it actually met the threshold.
Yeah, so the way the rules are written is those yellow circles are not red. Red indicates impact. We would not have a basis under our noise policy to extend that wall, even if the church said okay.
Okay.
So it would basically still be in where it is. We might get a little more length there, but as far as carrying it all the way down to benefit 427, 426, 425, we wouldn't be able to do that.
I know I'm dense, but explain one more time. I'm the red dot. What does that mean?
You were affected,
I'm affected,
yes,
but I'm not yellow, I'm not blue.
correct.
Does she get a
So
vote?
the noise
Yes.
level,
Yes.
the noise level at 421, because it's red, means that the predicted noise level was at least 66 decibels, and that's what we consider a noise impact. Trey, what is the noise level at 421 exactly?
It is 67 is the predicted future noise level, and with the current iteration of the barrier design, it is predicted to get a 4 decibel noise level.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's as close to being benefited as it can be, but it's not possible to benefit 421 with stopping the wall where it is due to the utilities concerns.
So I could have a partial wall and not the rest.
Right, so you will get some benefit, basically what they're saying is you're going to get a benefit, but it's not, for the analysis in the model, we can't say that you're being.
But if the church is okay, we may be able to extend a little
Yeah, we
bit
may
more to
be-
help that. We don't,
Correct.
Yeah.
we've not.
For what it's worth, it takes about an additional 120 feet in length of noise wall to benefit 421, just to go from 4 to a 5, which is relatively negligible in terms of noise. To achieve our noise reduction design goal of 7, we're looking at, you would have to lengthen the entire wall by about 345 feet and raise the height. We'd have to be able to build about 50% more total square footage of noise wall to achieve that. And that's assuming that we could overcome, the right-of-way and power line issues.
Is there a cheaper way to do the wall than concrete that's less costly?
I don't know anything.
A burn. Oh, put dirt there. All up dirt. How's that? I'm
We
just
tried that.
kidding. I'm
We
just
tried
kidding.
that. They're done
I'm
that.
just kidding. I'm just
What is
kidding.
that?
The cheapest way.
You also would want to leave something that's going to last and looks
Yeah.
aesthetically pleasing, you know, so I mean, you know, to put up any type of cheap pile or something like that would not be something.
We want to do it right.
Yeah, I mean, you've got your balance and, you know, you've got to have a wall that's going to do what it's supposed to do. You know, not just a visual barrier, but it's got to be that sound barrier
Well,
as
the
well.
thickness of a concrete wall, let's say it's 2 inches thick versus 2 feet thick. Do you get any benefit for thickness, or is it just height?
It is primarily the height because we're using solid concrete, virtually no noise passes through it. And so, at this point, it's about the height because the height of the wall determines, so there's something in traffic noise, you know, when you think about how a noise wall works. One, it blocks noise. Number two, noise does get around the ends and over the top. And the way we minimize that is we use height of the wall relative to the traffic that's on the interstate. So the height of that wall is lengthening the path that noise has to travel. And that's how it works. The longer that path, the less noise there is when it reaches your home. So the height of the wall relative to the traffic is critical in what we do. And if you try to build a berm of, you know, this is an average wall height of 19 feet, goes up as high as 26 feet. There's nowhere near enough space here to build an earthen berm anywhere near that height because they require a huge footprint. A concrete wall requires much less space than an earthen berm does.
Yeah, I think one thing you alluded to is maybe the thickness of the wall, something cheaper. If you had thinner panels, I assume it's kind of maybe what you were thinking, but the thickness of the wall, what we've got here, there's a minimum thickness. If you can imagine how big these are, we have to have a certain amount of reinforcing steel. You have to have a certain amount of concrete around that or they'll crack. So you can imagine taking a crane and setting these things, if you get too thin, they're gonna start crumbling when you set them. So we, you know,
They
that's,
have rebar in them too?
yeah.
How long is this gonna take? I mean, when do we think that little area of, between Mountain Home and Fletcher will be finished?
She said somewhere around the end of the year.
I think I'll be done with that section probably 6 months, honestly.
Maybe end of the year. That's fine, just keep it.
Because, you know, Fanning Bridge is horrible now, because everybody's coming, they get off there, or they take 25, and that road is.
Now, I'll be done, but now, I'm not gonna talk to the people in Buncombe County.
Yeah,
So to clarify for y'all, Division 14, we have Henderson County.
Okay.
And then Buncombe County is Division 13. So right here, when you get between the rest area and the airport interchange, that's the project limits. That's where ours joins. So we
that's
don't
what
have
I would
any.
do.
We don't have any.
We stop at Airport Road, basically, our section stops right.
The interchange is not, the ramps are not.
You start.
Oh, those are the ramps, they're terrible.
Yeah. That's where we.
There's odds of the north.
Those ramps, somebody's gonna be killed there.
Ma'am, did you had a question, did you have? Okay.
Thank you so much.
I have a follow-up question. The blue dots are very interesting, and I'm getting that the whole thing is based on how many blue dots you have on the screen. Is it gonna build this wall or not?
It's the blue dots versus I mean, well, not blue. Who was impacted originally? Tracy can explain it.
Well, first, let me finish my question. You got about 14 blue dots. If there were 6 blue dots, would you be doing this at all?
You
Yes.
could, but you wouldn't be as big.
Right.
The wall wouldn't be as long. It would only be the ones affecting the blue dots.
Good answer, I understand that.
Okay.
To simplify it, it took me a while to wrap my brain around this. It's a cost-benefit analysis that is a very simple way to put it. I think Tracy and them dealing formulas and things that are like 20 feet long. But it is a cost-benefit analysis so that how many people are benefited versus the cost of the wall. Because we can all agree as taxpayers, we don't want to spend $2 million worth of taxpayer money to benefit 3 people, right? I think as taxpayers,
Yes.
well, I would think we can all agree with that. But you reach a threshold where enough people are benefited versus the cost of the wall.
Gotcha. So I'm a yellow dot. Okay?
You're a yellow dot.
I'm a yellow dot, and I'm gonna get some benefit because the noise coming from the rest area direction is gonna be attenuated slightly.
Which number of yours do you know?
But I'm not gonna get anything from a perpendicular noise coming from the road, unless you extend it to Fanning Bridge Road.
See, back to what Tracy said earlier, and that's what's very important to realize. Remember what he described, what benefited means in his world, right? In his world, benefited means it meets a certain threshold. That doesn't mean that the yellow dots aren't being benefited, right? You're getting every dot on that map. Tracy, please correct me
It
if I'm
has to
wrong.
be benefited at least, to be considered a benefit, you have to reduce it by at least 5.
Right, every dot on that map is getting some benefit.
Right.
Just not to the regulatory threshold that Tracy and his group have to deal with, right, Tracy?
Yeah, so that, yeah, the yellow dots are not meeting the threshold that we need to call it a benefit, but, the extent to how much this wall benefits a yellow dot is gonna be your own perception. Some of you, when the wall is in, may say, I can't really tell it's done anything. And then other ones are gonna say, wow, it really made a big difference, regardless of what Tracy's studies show. And that's just gonna be a matter of, when you step outside in your yard with this wall up, what does it sound like? Did it make a difference or did it not? Some will probably say yes and some will say no. But yeah, we're bound by a very specific definition of that 5 decibel. That's a minimum. When Trey read out the range of noise level reductions, you can tell the blue dots and the green dots that we're doing far more than that for the vast majority of those homes. So that's just the minimum, but we like to do more than that where we can and keep it cost effective.
Yeah, basically everyone who's a yellow or red dot, the noise wall is predicted to reduce the noise level by less than 5 decibels. So for some of those, it may be 4 decibels, and you may be able to tell the difference. For others, particularly those that are further away from the wall, it may be 0, and the wall may, for receptors like 427, and certainly ones on like the other side of the road, like 452, you're not going to obviously be able to tell the difference.
All right, so my red dot, I'm the only red dot up there.
You're special.
I am special. That means I will get partial.
Yeah, you're getting partial. Depending on what, and like I said, this is preliminary, so depending on what the final design is, you will see a reduction.
That's what I'm not moving.
It will be a benefit, but at this point, with the preliminary design, we don't know
I guess that's why I got red.
Yeah,
Red means you only get a little bit.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, you're getting 4 decibels, and we need it to be 5, so you were right on the edge, but not quite there.
That's because I've had trees and shrubs and everything else there. Well, and the church is fine.
Well, I don't know what you know. The thing that bothers me the greatest is the peak noise from the craziness on the highway. The steady state's not too bad. I'm glad you're doing something about steady state for blue dots. Europe has a system of traffic control where trailer trucks are limited to acceleration rates. They only drive in the right lane, and they have twice as many mufflers on them as in the United States. So their noise issue with motorcycles and trailer trucks is way below what's happening in the United States, and DOT controls all this factor. It's not your particular area of construction. Is there anything happening in America to reduce these crazy, zany noise from trucks and motorcycles that you know of?
More electric, sounds like.
We do have, electric does help.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
But we do have the lane restrictions, before the project started and after the project finishes, particularly up there at Long Shoals, there'll be a truck restriction at that point.
So I don't want you to say there will not.
I don't know what it was.
There was, but because of the new interchange there.
Okay, well, scratch that.
Sorry.
Those crazy people in the north, we don't want them. But anyway.
That is dangerous.
But as far as like the mufflers and stuff, that is more of an industry standard, and that would have, which I would assume would have to be changed legislatively, to make the industry changes, so.
And if I can say something about the exhaust from heavy trucks, there is a trend in the trucking industry where those vertical exhaust stacks are being moved underneath the vehicle. In fact, if you're out riding around and you pay attention to it like I do, because this is my discipline, you'll notice that a lot of those heavy trucks now, you can't see their exhaust. That's because they've been moved underneath the vehicle. And even the ones that still have vertical exhaust, with the installation there's filters that have been installed in those vertical exhausts to remove particulate matter and other harmful pollutants. Those have started to make those exhaust pipes less noisy than they were a while back. So as this trend continues and more of those vertical exhaust stacks are moved underneath the vehicle, that noise will get less and less over time. But there are, just like with motorcycles, when you buy a new Harley-Davidson motorcycle, and I bought 4 in my life, the very first thing you do is you change the pipes. Because the pipes that come on it are too quiet. And everybody likes a quiet motorcycle. So they put loud pipes on them. And a lot of truckers like to have these highly chrome vertical exhaust stacks that are really loud. It's just kind of a thing that they like to do. But I would say as a trend, those exhaust pipes being moved onto the vehicle should be helpful over time.
How is it?
Also,
How is it the legislature does not control motorcycle pipes? I mean, do you take your pipes off, your mufflers off, and put straight pipes on the motorcycle? Is that just, it's so accepted. I can't believe it's so accepted. For example, I'm at a stoplight on the airport road, and a motorcycle comes up beside me and stops. I have to roll the window up, and he's revving this thing up, and almost hurting my eardrum with the window rolled up. So I don't know how the motorcycles have gotten this license to run straight pipes. So if you have any knowledge, I'd like to know. It's a problem. What do you do, sir? You have a motorcycle.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I said you have 4 motorcycles. You said you run straight pipes off your motorcycle.
No, they're not straight pipes, no. Harley-Davidson has a brand of pipes called Screaming Eagles. They are louder than stock pipes, but they're not ridiculously loud. They're just loud enough that when I started up in the morning, it didn't bother the neighbors, as long as I didn't rev it up. But they're loud, and they're not, in my view, they're not obnoxiously loud, but there are other pipes you can get that are, and a lot of motorcycle riders will tell you they have loud pipes for safety. I don't necessarily buy that, but I just think they like the loudness of it. But there is a safety argument that the motorcycle riders will tell you that they need those, so folks know they're coming.
Oh, my. I've never heard that.
I have to say, you don't pull out in front of them and they tell you. I've heard that. That's been one excuse I have heard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You're revving them all the time so people all around you can hear you. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a problem with left-hand turns being made in front of motorcyclists, so if you can hear, and a lot of the drivers, when they do that, they honestly didn't see the motorcycle coming, but if it's super loud, they think the odds are that you knowing that they're coming better if it's got really loud pipes. You can even buy earplugs in a Harley-Davidson. It seems kind of odd, but they do that.
just in the last year.
Yes.
They didn't walk away from them.
Yeah,
We've not.
Somebody did see them every time, so I've probably been arguing with motorcyclists with loud mufflers for that very reason, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
People didn't see them, didn't hear them, they're right out in front of them.
But they took my first one with a hybrid, and I didn't have it 3-6 months. They recalled, and they made it louder. They said it was, people couldn't hear it. And so, but they don't do that to motorcycles or trucks.
A couple of points or questions, with the Baptist church. Part of they must have given up or at least a right of way on part of their property, or permission for part of the wall, because they're, the fellowship hall is partially covered with this wall. Is that right?
Well, that's
That's
the,
what we're trying to, we've not.
They haven't told them.
right, and
Yeah,
that's
they
where
put their
that goes
wall,
back
they
to
put
the
their
benefit
building
analysis of
right
the wall.
on my wall.
You know, we talked about the height, but there's also a length component of that as well. So, I mean, this is where he was saying that, if you had 1,100 and some odd feet, we might be able to reduce this from this lady. So it's that length component that we need, and we've taken it as far as we think feasible to take it. That's still gonna get you that benefit, that still, it meets that cost benefit analysis. So there's a lot of little, you've got to take it as far as you can, but you still, so that you're not going over that cost benefit analysis.
This is a concept, we don't know, there's still moving parts that we're trying to get.
Because I would.
That's all
definitely
within
request,
existing,
can you keep moving it north as far?
that's all within existing right of way. So we did not gain any new right of way to build this.
Right.
I don't remember your name.
Me? Oh, Mitchell.
Thank you, Mitchell. Mitchell, I think you've been, I'd like for you to complete your thought, if you would, about extending the wall. I think that if you've got any kind of, in front of the Lakes Ridge Baptist, you were trying to say a couple of things. Is there anything that you haven't told us about?
No, we've picked this area because we knew that from what we gathered, Mike, I think you've had some conversations with, was it one of the pastors?
Yeah, quite a while back, yes, I had a conversation with an associate pastor, I think it was, and their take on it at the time was they wanted the visibility to the interstate as a church, they want visibility. And I think to the point you're getting at is, and if Tracy'd like to weigh in on this, he can. We have to be careful here. We want to make sure that this passes that cost benefit analysis that I was talking about earlier. If you extend that wall all the way to Fanning Bridge, and you're really not benefiting those houses all that much on the other side of the church, and the church only counts as one dot, then you may tip over into it ruining the whole deal. Because you're extending the wall a considerable amount at very, very little benefit. And all of a sudden the cost of the wall gets much higher at no benefit.
And it's worth mentioning here that the noise walls are designed for all those that are impacted by traffic. So the intent is not to design a noise wall to benefit, 423 through 427.
In fact, I'm specifically prohibited from doing that under our noise rules.
Yeah.
You have to be impacted, there has to be 66 decibels or more to justify extending that wall.
Tracy, correct me if we're talking about how much we think we can extend it versus what's being shown here, and I think Trey mentioned it earlier. We just, for the sake of this meeting, to give y'all an idea of kind of what we're thinking, we are not opposed if we can go, I don't know if he said 100 some feet to the north, could possibly turn 421 to blue, which would mean instead of getting 4 decibels, you've got to get at least 5 to consider it, to turn that,
Right.
to turn it blue.
We're only extending the noise wall to try to get more noise level reduction for 421, because that's the only impact left for which we're not achieving the
least an earthen berm in part of that area, because it is elevated from the road.
Well, the problem is we don't have, the earth berm, you have to start, so like a wall, you know, once you get it constructed, the footprint's this wide. If you've got an earthen berm that's 10 feet high, normally you're gonna have a 2-to-1 slope, so you're gonna have, hit one here. You'd have to have 20 foot to the right of the center line of the wall, 20, so you'd have to have 40 feet.
Yeah.
And there's not enough room up there to build.
Yeah.
So I can just basically
Sure.
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Do you have any short vegetation or tall vegetation that's planning to go on the berm?
It's actually already planted. So,
Short and tall?
yeah, there is vegetation, we
Well,
replanted
you
all
can
the
only
way.
plant so, I mean, like a 40-foot tree, you can't physically take, you have to plant something, hope it's something that's fast growing. But, I mean, there's a certain size tree that you can manage to get up there and plant, so a huge tree, you want to.
All the way to Fanning, we planted, Leland cypress, magnolia, oak, and I was trying to, I'd have to look back, but Blake, do you remember what this was?
So these trees are 4 feet high right now?
5,
Five.
6.
Leland grow fast.
Okay.
Does anybody from the town or do y'all have any questions? Or kind of, I'm just looking at the time, we've got about 15 more minutes that we allowed it, but that doesn't mean that we can't go further. But I do want to be respectful of everybody's time.
The notification for the votes, if you, for the people who will be allowed to vote, if you have any suggestions for us to basically just help notify them.
So they'll know to
And
go
that's
back
going to be
in.
coming. We'll put something in our newsletter, we may put something on Facebook, some other notification. I just want to make sure this is something that came to mind, with the people that are going to be allowed to vote, that they know and you don't miss anybody.
Okay, so Tracy, maybe 2 weeks ahead of you mailing the ballots, can you let the town know that you're going to do that? And they'll put it out on their Facebook page, webpage, that it's coming.
Okay, and then could I get a contact person for that?
It's Martin's.
Yeah, if you can just, if you want to just email them on contact.
You should have, it should be on the Teams.
Is it on this end?
Yeah.
March, okay. Yeah, and one thing I could suggest is we do 2 rounds of balloting. So maybe after the first round, if I haven't gotten a good enough response, we could do a more robust outreach. But given the interest in a noise wall in this neighborhood, my guess is that after that first round, we're probably going to get a good response. But yes, I welcome your help in trying to get the word out. We just need to be careful about how it's worded so the right people are being asked to vote and not a general population. So.
Chuck, do you have any questions?
I'm muted, I'm sorry. No, I have no questions. I understand the process. Let's proceed.
So,
Thank you, Chuck.
one last point that I did want to make, we were talking about the allowing breaks and all that. We have deceleration going on, to get on the airport road, going north, we have going into the rest area, going south, and, I don't know if Jake Breaks will go away anytime soon or not, but all those truckers and the heavy traffic that we're now seeing, we need some help. So
We need the highway patrol better there and the county police.
We can reach out to Roadside Environmental and just see if we've restricted or, usually that's a local ordinance, so I don't know that it's something that we have historically done in rest areas, but we can certainly ask and find out if we do that as a general policy.
and you got the acceleration and deceleration going on the
Yes,
entrance and exit ramps there.
Yeah.
We're
Like I
right
said,
in the middle of it.
The number one problem,
It's a local ordinance.
There is no,
heat. being close to these, exchanges.
We can't regulate, my understanding on the interstate as far as the engine, you have to call them engine compression brakes, or they get a nasty grant from the J. We have an ordinance on our town roads that they're not supposed to be using engine compression brakes. So
They don't work. Fanning Bridge.
yeah, they'll come and do it, and then we'll tell the police, and
I don't know.
they have pulled some people over for it, so.
That's my problem, because I'm getting this noise, Jake breaking was ready to call from the interstate, but also from Fanning Bridge. So I'm riding, I have it coming from two directions, because I'm on a hill on Fanning Bridge, right where the Jake breaking happens, on Wildwood Lane. So I can tell the difference between is the noise from Fanning Bridge or from the interstate. I can actually tell the difference of where it's coming from.
We're 100 yards away from the sign that said it's prohibited. And it's still.
Well, I'm about 95.
Any other questions? I mean, I don't, like, so we can stay here as long as y'all need us to. I want to be respecting your time.
Thank you for coming, thank you for putting this together. Tracy, Trey, Chuck, thank you for being here, everyone, thank you for being on and coming and doing this today.
You're welcome. Happy to help.